Evcol.
Madame X. The time is 1928. The place, France. A young woman is thrown onto the streets by her jealous husband when he discovers she has been having an affair. Forbidden from seeing her beloved young son, and with neither money nor friends, she sinks into depravity.
Jacqueline, he's coming! I'm sure he has a revolver. We don't have time for this. We must leave now.
I will always love you, my Raymond. Let no one ever take that love away. Let no one come between us. You are my life. My life, I tell you.
Monsieur Florio, Madame Varenne has arrived. She's waiting for you in the library.
If you would be so kind as to sit with young Raymond whilst I meet with her.
Indeed, sir. You should try and get some rest. You've hardly slept at all in nearly 2 weeks.
I thank you for your kindness, but being at his side is where I truly want to be. He is all I have left.
As you wish, sir.
How kind of you to come, Madame Varenne.
I'm delighted with the news that Florence has just given me.
Yes, it seems our nightmare is almost over. I couldn't have held out much longer.
You have had a bad time of it.
It hasn't been easy, and I shall never be able to thank your brother enough for what he has done.
He has thought of nothing else beside the boy for weeks. The day before yesterday, he went to see one of his old professors to consult him on the treatment, and he was hard at work that night experimenting and reading.
He tells me that's when the idea came to him which saved Raymond's life. I owe my boy's life to your brother.
What he has done has been its own reward. My brother is so fond of Raymond.
And you?
Oh, I love the child.
And he loves you. Oh. You were the first person he asked for when the fever left him. And now that we are alone for a moment, I want to take this opportunity of thanking you.
Thanking me for what?
For your friendship.
Oh, how absurd you are. Then I should be making pretty speeches to you to thank you for yours also.
It's not quite the same thing. You are a charming, happy, amiable woman, whilst well, I'm just a bear.
You don't mean what you say.
Oh, yes, bear is the only word that describes me. An ill-tempered bear at that.
You'll never be as disagreeable as my husband was.
Really? Was he even gloomier than I?
Goodness gracious, yes. You are a regular devil of a chap compared to him.
You can't have had a wildly merry time.
I didn't. However, now everything and everybody appears charming by contrast.
Even I?
Yes, even you.
My darling sister. And Florio. How are you both? And Raymond?
By all accounts, the lad appears to be recovering well, thanks to your good self.
Think nothing of it. Some sound advice from trusty colleagues and your boy's strong constitution is what we should be truly thanking. How do you know that we are not both of us sowing that we may reap? One never knows how useful it may be to be friends with a man in your profession.
Deputy Attorney of Paris and still so young.
You both flatter. I don't think 34 years young these days.
Well, my dear Florio and darling brother, I shall take my leave. He has words for you, Louis. Be about your guard, for it is now your health he seeks to heal.
A remarkable woman.
Indeed, but my focus at present is upon you. As the boy is out of danger, you must begin taking care of yourself.
Why, there's nothing the matter with me.
Oh, indeed there is.
Nonsense. I'm a little tired, possibly, but nothing that a few days' rest can't remedy.
No, you are working too much, and you are taking too little exercise. You brood and worry over things, and you must take a cure.
What sort of cure?
Every morning, no matter what the weather is, you must take a smart 2 hours walk.
But, my dear fellow...
You must walk at a smart pace for 2 hours, no less. And you must eat heartily.
My dear fellow, I can hardly get through a cutlet for my lunch.
I will let you off today, but from tomorrow on, you must eat 2.
I shall never be able to do anything of the sort.
Oh, yes, you will. On your way home, every evening you must look in at the fencing school and fence for half an hour, take a cold shower, and proceed home.
Walk? Out to Passy?
Indeed, out to Passy.
My dear doctor, I can't possibly follow your prescription. I haven't the time.
Well, then you must get married.
How absurd.
Sound advice, I assure you. Distraction of some sort is absolutely necessary for your case. There is nothing to be startled at. You've been married before, and you can do so again. A lonely life is not the life for you.
Really?
I have an idea that you won't have much difficulty in finding the very woman.
My friend, I see now that I ought to have told you before. I am not a widower.
Not a widower?
My wife is living. After 3 years of married life, she left me with a lover. I came home unexpectedly one day and found them together. They rushed out of the house in terror. I should have killed them both. I've sometimes thought of telling you, but somehow I could not talk of it. Chanel, old man, you cannot guess how horribly unhappy I am.
Then you love her still?
I cannot think of any other woman. God knows I've tried hard to forget her. She was the whole joy of my life itself. I would have died if I had dared, but I thought of the child, and that saved me from suicide. If I had lost him...
Raymond will be running about in a week.
Thanks to you, Doctor. You have saved both our lives.
I will have one last look at Raymond and be on my way. But we'll check in on you once more before I leave. Think on the advice I have given about your health. With regards to the other matter of which we spoke, I cannot presently advise. Maybe time will secure some thoughts.
Florence, you look concerned. Whatever is the matter?
My boy. Raymond. Is it true? Has he been ill?
For more than 2 weeks, madame.
I only heard of it yesterday. By accident. Oh, Florence. I must see him. Louis, if there is any forgiveness in your heart...
Any forgiveness I had for you disappeared a long time ago.
Please. Monsieur, madame, the doctor is with Raymond next door. He is still weak.
Of course, you are right, Florence.
Poor little chap. We thought he could never get over it. The doctor says he will soon be well again.
My Raymond. How he must have grown.
He does not look strong at present, madame.
And to think that he might have died, and I should never have seen him again. I wonder if he will recognize me. Does he remember me at all? Surely you wouldn't deny me a look at my own boy.
Wouldn't it have been better to write to Monsieur Florio? He wasn't expecting you, and it's been hard on the whole household whilst Raymond has been ill.
I have written, and written. The number of times I've lost count. But there's never a response. Why is that, Louis? Louis, I must see him. Louis, you must not condemn me unheard. Florence, he loved me a little once. He must hear me now. Does he ever speak of me?
Never, madame.
What did he say? What did he do when I left? Do you remember?
I shall never forget it. The monsieur locked himself in his room for days. He wouldn't see anyone. There was much unhappiness. I was so worried that one time I went into his room as I hadn't heard from him in hours, and he was just sitting beside the fire, burning your letters and photographs, tears rolling down his cheeks.
But surely, for the sake of the boy, surely he must still love me a little.
The boy saved him. That's what I think. I know little of the love you speak of. And then the monsieur began to settle, and things here returned to as normal as one might expect under the circumstances.
I have often wondered, since that night, whether my husband ever truly loved me. But without love, as I see it, I had felt my life incomplete. I never knew the heart of my silent, serious and hard-working husband, even though he must have surely seen that I worshipped him. But Florence, my boy, for 2 years I have dreamt of nothing else than the hour when I would be permitted to see him again, hold him again. surely he would not deny a mother's right to be with her child. He must permit her to live where she could see her boy and watch him grow to manhood. Oh, my darling.
Enough! You are to leave this house.
Louis,
At once!
Louis, please.
Go!
Yes, I will go. I promise I will go. But one moment. Please.
What can you possibly have to say that would be of interest to me?
Louis, forgive me.
Forgive you? For 2 years I have lived day and night with the thought of you in another man's arms, and you ask me to forgive you.
In our child's name.
Don't you dare mention him. He is nothing to you. He is mine, mine only. Do you think of him when you left us?
Louis, for God's sake. I was mad.
Of course, that is what I expected.
I was false to my husband. I deserted my child. I went away with my lover. I trampled on every... Oh, Louis, 'tis the truth.
The truth? Would you like to hear the truth? You were tired of being an honourable woman. You were tired of me and loved him.
He loved me. He said he would kill himself for me, and I...
And you believed him. My God, I worshipped you. And ours was a love match, for you once told me 1,000 years ago that you loved me.
And it was. It is true, Louis. It is. It is, Louis. We didn't understand each other. It was my fault. You loved me passionately, only I could not see it. I was never part of your life. I was never your friend. Yes, you were gentle with me, but you never really knew my heart. And with you I always felt alone. I loved you, but I was always afraid of you. You were so serious and severe. I wanted to laugh and enjoy my life, but you never noticed it. You had your work, your ambition, your legal friends, and I had nothing. And I was so young, 20, hardly 20. Louis, you would not condemn the lowest criminal if there were any defence for him, and I am the mother of your boy. You swore to love, honour and protect me. And did you do it?
This is ridiculous.
You loved me, but you never honoured me. You did not think I was worthy to be the companion to you that a wife should be. I might as well have been your mistress.
Madame, please.
No, this needs to be said, and the monsieur needs to hear. Did you protect me? You brought him to the house the first time. You encouraged me to be kind to him.
You make your words turn things on their head.
You permitted him to be my escort wherever I wanted to go, because my pleasure would not then interfere with your work or your plans. He grew to be everything to me that you should have been. You would not even try to please me if my request interfered with your work. Always your work. You angered me and hurt me because you would not let me come close to your real life. But you could have saved me. A little attention. If I could have felt that I was anything more than a little plaything, something to amuse you in the few minutes that you ever took for amusement.
You knew what you were getting into. You were knowledgeable of what was expected.
But you knew my years. When I came to you for help, nothing. There was nothing. Do you remember a few days before the night I left? I wanted you to go to Fontainebleau with me, and you wouldn't. And I went with him. With him. That day in the park, he kissed my hands and said he would kill himself at my feet if I didn't love him. I made him take me home, to you. I found you in your study and begged you to go out with me. I wanted to show myself that I loved you only. Do you remember what you said? You said, I'm too busy. Run along and get Lascelles to take you. Louis, you could have saved me then.
Jacqueline, you must go.
Why did I go at all? You would have killed me and that would have been the end of it. Forgive me.
No, it is taking all of my reserve to stoop and crush you. Surely you can see what you have done to me. How can that be repaired?
What will become of me?
Go back to him. Go back to the man who would have killed himself for you.
He is dead.
So that's why you've come back.
Please, monsieur, please.
No. I came to see our boy.
How dare you play these games with my affections? I actually started to believe you. So he's dead, is he?
I wrote to tell you.
And now that he's dead, you thought of me again, the simple-minded fool who would only be too glad to take you back again.
Can't you see I've changed?
Changed! Leave this house!
Let me see our boy again.
He has forgotten you.
Let me kiss him. Just once.
He believes you to be dead.
This is too cruel.
You have gone out of his life. And mine.
Don't say that. It can't be true. You wouldn't tell him that. Don't take my child away from me.
Go! Never return!
Don't take my child away from me.
My God, she's gone. And I love her. I shall never see her again. She must never see Raymond. She must never come back. God, give me the strength to forget.
He's doing splendidly, and he's hungry, the best sign in the world. He's to have a little milk and 3 spoonfuls of soup before he goes to sleep, and nothing else until I come in. Why, my dear fellow, whatever is the matter?
My dear doctor, I've just gone through... My wife. She has been here.
Your wife?
You can't imagine how I felt. For a moment I was afraid of myself, afraid that I would kill her. Doctor, in these few minutes I have lived 5 years over again.
Florio, my friend, sit down a moment.
Do you know why she came back? Her lover is dead.
Monsieur Knoll has arrived, sir.
Show him in, Florence. And thank you for remaining with me throughout what has just happened.
You're welcome.
Doctor, Noel is an old and dear friend who I thought dead until this very morning.
Well, here I am, Florio, and very much alive.
My dear Noel. This is my friend, Dr. Chanel. He has just saved my boy's life.
Then I am more than glad to shake you by the hand, Doctor, for anything that touches Florio comes very near to me.
You look in very good health for a dead man.
Then you heard of my suicide?
Yes, and the papers said you were deceased.
To quote a great humorist, the report was greatly exaggerated.
2 bullets, they said.
And they were right. But 2 bullets were not enough for me. I've always been a bit hard-headed, you know. When I was on the road to recovery, one of the doctors told me that he didn't think that I would ever get to be marksman enough to hit my brain. Said I ought to practice trying to hit a pea in a wine barrel before I tried it again. Then I found out that I could laugh. I decided that as long as I could take enough interest in life to laugh, there was no occasion for my going on with my suicide plans.
Well, gentlemen, I can see you both have a great deal to talk about, and I don't wish to be an undesirable third. I will return in the morning.
And now let me have a look at you, Louis, old man. Life has not been much kinder to you than to me, judging from your looks.
Find me looking old, do you?
No, not old for your age. How old are you? 40?
34.
Well, nobody would say that you were a day more than 42.
Thank you.
Fancy. 5 whole years since I saw you.
And 5 weeks separation in the old days seemed like a century. You're going to stay here tonight and take breakfast with me in the morning?
Oh, most assuredly.
An early breakfast, though. I must be in court at 9.
Ah, of course. You're deputy attorney now.
Indeed. I received my promotion more than a year ago.
I always knew you'd get on.
I have not much to worry about there. But I want to hear about you, old man. What happened to you? Why did you want to commit suicide? Who was she?
It was a woman.
Well, of course it was. For some time before you went away, I noticed a change in you.
Ah, you did you?
You were not as lively as you had been. And you were away for days at a time, so I knew it must be a woman. You loved her? And she was false to you?
She did not even know that I loved her.
Did you not tell her?
No.
Why? Was she free?
She loved another man. When I heard of her marriage, I felt that my life was of no particular use to me, so I tried to get rid of it. And failed.
I see.
Oh, I'm used to being a fool, Louis. I was always the fool of the family at home. I might have known that the woman I loved would have sense enough to pick out another man. I even made a fool of myself when I tried to take my life.
But you were badly hurt.
Pretty badly, yes. I was soon on my feet again. I travelled and subsequently made a ridiculous amount of money in the Canadian fur business.
Yes, but why didn't you write to me?
I wanted to forget and be forgotten. The papers reported me dead, so I seized the opportunity to stay dead until it suited my pleasure to come back to life again.
Are you married?
No, I shall never marry.
So you still love her?
I don't want anyone else. But let's talk about you, Louis. Are you happy? How is Jacqueline? Little Jenny Wren, we used to call her. I suppose she's quieter now after 5 years with a solemn old crank like you. Why, Louis, what's the matter?
Don't worry, it's nothing. My child has been at death's door for the last few days, and I thought I'd lost him.
Oh.
My nerves are just out of joint, that's all.
And how old is Monsieur Raymond?
4.
Quite a man. Is he your only child? I will see him, of course.
Certainly. In the morning. He can't be disturbed tonight.
Yes. Don't tell your wife that I am here. I want to see her face when she comes in and sees me.
You won't see her.
Oh? Is she away?
Yes. She is gone.
Gone?
She left me 2 years ago with her lover.
Little Jenny Wren.
You pity her?
Is she not to be pitied?
Then what of me, who adored her? I am an old man at 34. You told me so yourself. Well, now you know why.
She was only frivolous and wanted luxury and pleasure. Life was too serious a problem for her. And you never suspected anything?
No, I believed in her.
My dear old man, brace up. Remember, you have your boy still, and who knows, one of these days she'll be bitterly sorry for the misery she has caused, and you'll see her back here again.
I have seen her again.
She came back then?
This very day she had the impudence.
But she came back? What for?
Oh, not for much, merely to ask my pardon.
And what did you say?
I told her to go.
You turned her out?
Well, of course I did.
Louis, you turned her out in the street, without knowing where she was going. My friend, unless I'm badly mistaken myself, you'll be sorry for this in the morning.
There is something I need to tell you. Noel, my friend, there is no man or woman alive excepting you to whom I can talk to as I'm going to do. You were about to defend her just now without question. You said that she was most to be pitied. I know why. You knew her before we were married. Marriage develops people. She had the happiness of a home and the lives' happiness of 2 and possibly 3 persons in her hands. For the sake of a vicious intrigue, which she now sees could never bring her anything but misery, she sacrificed her boy and me. Her misery is no consolation to me because I still love her. The boy must never know that she is alive. Never know what she did.
Louis.
I know that she must have loved me. Or why would she have married me? If she wanted position, she could have married men further up in the world than I was, than I am now. If she wanted money, she could have married a bigger bank account than mine. Noel, you can't realize the happiness of my life until I learned that I was a fool. For the first year, I pitied the whole world because it couldn't be utterly as happy as I was. Then our boy was born, and after that, it seemed that before I had been miserable by contrast. Before that time, I thought I fully had the average man's capacity for work. And then it was doubled. I was in my office early and late, every moment that I could tear myself away from my home. I even worked in the study at night so that I could be near her and our baby. I'd set my eyes on the position I now hold, and I was tireless in my work for it. I was as sure that I would win it as I was of the sanctity of my own home. Then came the scandal in the finance department. There was one brilliant young fellow in this lot, of whom you may not have heard thanks to my efforts, Lascelles, Albert Lascelles. I was certain that he was innocent, the victim of circumstantial evidence. None of my associates agreed with me, which made my work harder, but I proved my theory to be a sound one. It was a great triumph for me. Lascelles knew it and tried to kill me with gratitude. The day he was discharged, we were both drunk with excitement, and I insisted that he should come home to dinner with me that evening. It was indeed a merry dinner the 3 of us had that night. Lascelles was a brilliant young man, and I never knew Jacqueline to be wittier or more entertaining. He came to see us often after that. He was alone in the world. I could see that Jacqueline liked him, and that was enough for me. How was I to suspect anything? I encouraged him to escort Jacqueline to the races and other places of which she had been so fond. I seldom had time to go with her, but despite this friendship, Jacqueline grew more affectionate to me every day and pleaded with me constantly to go about with her and let my work take care of itself. I showed her time and again how impossible this was. Then Lascelles came and I would tell him to take her somewhere. The guiltier she grew with Lascelles, the more affection she displayed for me to prevent any hint of suspicion. Then one day, I told her that I would be unusually busy, would dine at a cafe, and would not be home until very late. But as it happened, when I returned to my office after dinner, I found there was nothing of importance, and so I went home.
Oh, Louis.
The storm was beginning, and when I reached the front door, I let myself in without making any noise. I wanted to surprise Jacqueline, and my friend, God grant that you may never know what I felt when I opened the door of the room where they were and found them together. I believe the shock unbalanced my mind in the moment that I saw them as I opened the door, for I leaned against the doorpost and stared at them as if paralyzed. They leaped up and were staring back at me, and their faces...
Louis, don't.
My mind refused to grasp the horror that my eyes had seen. I turned away from the door and I stumbled down the hall towards my study. It seemed to me that I must kill them. I was some time finding my revolver. I came back, but the room was empty. I raced through every room in the house, cursing at them at the top of my voice. Not finding them, I ran out into the rain and dashed down the street aimlessly. I don't remember much of that night. I was only occasionally conscious of the rain on my face. As dawn came, I was in some vile street on Montmartre, and with the daylight came a sort of calm. As I walked through the early morn, it wasn't too long before I reached home, and I decided I would devote the rest of my life to hunt both of them down. For days I walked the streets, visiting the places I knew they both frequented, but to no avail. Then one evening, I was about to venture out again when I met Florence at the front door. She was holding the baby, my boy, in her arms. Noel, up to that moment, I had not felt the slightest grief. Fury and lust for vengeance left no room for any other emotion.
Louis, no more.
For a fraction of a moment, I felt an impulse to kill the baby because it was hers. Noel, I thought the next moment that I was dying, and if it had only been true. For the first time came the realization of what I had lost.
Yes.
Finally, I made up my mind that no matter how empty my life might be, I must live for the boy's sake. And with that resolution, I locked up the revolver, burned every letter and photograph I had of her, and then I came into the world again. Now, my friend, which of us deserves the most pity?
Louis, you know that I feel your pain almost as much as if it were mine, but I see this from a very different angle. Even before I heard your story, I understood, of course, that she was guilty of grave misconduct, but it seems to me she has been punished enough, and that she has repented. If not, why would she have come back?
I don't think I told you that her lover is dead.
She's your wife.
I won't have her near the boy.
And he's her boy too. And whatever becomes of your boy's mother now, my friend, you can take the responsibility.
I? Responsible for her?
Yes, you are responsible, Louis. Who knows what that poor woman may do now after you have thrown her out?
Noel, what on earth is the matter with you? Haven't I any rights? Wouldn't you have done what I did?
Your rights? Do you think you have the right to sentence the mother of your boy to the life that she will have to lead now? Your own conscience must be singularly clear and your own life wonderfully blameless, my friend. Your rights. What about your duties, Did you look after your duties as faithfully as you are now looking out for your rights? Jacqueline was young. Did you guide her and guard her? By your own story, you threw her in the way of an attractive man so that you could shift some of your duties onto his shoulders. You expected her to make you happy. Did you study her happiness? Do you remember that she is far younger than you are? Did your age try to understand her youth and its needs? You don't answer. And because she erred, because she has wounded your vanity by preferring, and I'm not defending her, Louis, by preferring another man to you when you did everything you could to make her do it. You close your door against her, and you tell me you love her.
God knows I love her.
You loved her.
No!
True love will trample down any obstacle to pardon, to sacrifice, and no one who has not suffered can be sure that he has been loved. No, my friend, you didn't love Jacqueline. You loved her grace, her beauty, and her charm, but it did not blind you to her weakness. If you had really loved her, she could have done you no irreparable wrong. For even when she made this mistake, your love would have found an excuse.
Any man in the same place would have done what I did. Tell me, what would you have done?
I don't know exactly. I don't know what I should do, because I am a man with a man's limitations. But I know what you ought to do, Louis.
No.
Jacqueline is the mother of your son, and you have dared to separate them for life. You might have saved her from her future, and you have given her the first push down the hill that leads we both know where. You are a public servant. When you plead against a criminal, you ask for a verdict and a sentence in proportion to the crime committed. Your wife sinned against you and is sorry for her sin, and yet you have sentenced her to misery, despair, and death.
No!
Yes. What will she do? What will become of her? Have you ever thought of that? Who will be responsible? You have not. I can see it in your face, and I suppose you consider yourself an honourable man, a model husband, a blameless father. If you won't do your duty, Louis, by the living God, I'll do it for you.
What do you mean?
I mean that your wife shall find in my house the place that you refuse her.
Noel, you are presuming a little beyond the privilege of even a friend.
In this case, I have more than the privilege of a friend.
No! Jacqueline. She was the woman you loved.
Yes. And I loved her better, if not more than you did. Enough to end my life for. I loved her for years before your marriage. Many and many a time I made up my mind to speak to her. Again and again I went away trying to show myself that I wanted nothing more than my freedom. The farther I travelled, the more miserable I grew, and I always came back more in love than ever. Then I began to think she was falling in love with you. I tried to tell her that I loved her. I ran away again. This time I got as far as Messina, and bought my ticket for the next eastbound P&O. Then I deliberately missed the boat, and the next one. I couldn't drag myself up the gangway. The next day, I found myself in a railway station on my way back. I had nearly reached her house when I heard of your betrothal. I suppose you wonder, Louis, why I was not more completely overcome and horrified by your story of madness? My madness carried me a little farther. I, too, sat up in my room with a revolver one night, trying to decide whether I should kill you, or myself, or both of us. The old padre once told me when I was a boy, there is a line somewhere in the holy writings which says, "Greater love hath no man than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. But his friend ought to show that he appreciates the sacrifice." If I had dreamed that Jacqueline would be where she is tonight, I would have killed you, my friend, before I tried to kill myself.
What do you think I ought to do?
Do? Do? I'm going to find Jacqueline. Are you coming with me? Together we must look for her, Louis. Leave no stone unturned. I can't thank you enough for your help, Commissioner.
Monsieur Florio is well known to us, and we will do all in our power to help. Just to be clear, and so I can best guide my men, what have you already covered?
In all honesty, we had hoped to locate Madame Florio within 48 hours, but clearly we have not been successful. We had learned that a woman answering to Madame's description had been seen at the Passy station taking a train to Paris, but that came to nothing. We have searched the cafes of the better sort and examined the registers of the larger hotels, but so far, well, we have clearly been out of luck.
And before coming to me, how long have you gentlemen been searching for Madame Florio?
The better part of 3 weeks.
I wish you had come to me sooner, monsieur.
I thought it was a private matter that could have been resolved without involving the police.
I understand. Discretion at all costs. You can be assured of that.
Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate all the help you can give in this matter.
There is one place we ought to visit before we do anything else, Louis. I don't think that she would do it, as long as the boy is alive. And I don't want to alarm you unnecessarily, but we might as well be sure.
Gentlemen, you have lost me.
The morgue. My wife, in the state she was in, thinking she was alone in the world, well, she might have thrown herself into the Seine.
Gentlemen, let me investigate on your behalf. Why don't you wait here a few moments while I consider this matter further?
Thank you. Monsieur Florio and I will remain here and await your return.
Commissioner, I realize how helpful you have been. It will not go unnoticed. Someone once said that the greatest hell on earth is reserved for the man who returns to his empty house from his wife's funeral and begins to ask himself whether he was or was not responsible for her death.
Louis.
There is one even more terrible than that. Believing that he is, in a large measure, responsible for her shame.
I am sure we will find her. But listen to me, you must hold fast. We both must.
Gentlemen, I can report there is no one fitting Madame Florio's description in the morgue. I have also asked my sergeant to telegraph the frontiers and all the seaports, just in case she should decide to leave France.
Leave France? But she can't do that.
I know that it is hardly possible, but no one can ever be too sure.
Is that an honest hope, Commissioner?
Gentlemen, I can do what I can do with the resources to hand. However, if someone wanted to disappear and remain hidden, well, France is a vast country, and they could successfully evade our investigations for...
Thank you, Commissioner. I will escort Monsieur Florio home, and then I will call on you in the morning and see if there is news.
But as you know, there was no news the following day, or night, or the next night.
I remember it being such a terrible strain on both men.
Indeed. Monsieur Florio brought much of his work home, wanting to spend more time with Raymond, and should news be sent of any possible sightings of Madame Jacqueline, he would leave the boy in my charge and race off at such a speed.
I wonder why he didn't ask my brother or myself for help. We have contacts throughout Europe, people who would have been only too happy to be of assistance.
He rarely spoke of the matter to me. I believe he wanted to personally right a wrong that he began to feel fully responsible for. He didn't want many to know of his circumstances. For Monsieur Florio, it was as if his very life was being drained. I would see him sitting beside the fire most nights, papers piled high around him, recounting the events of that frightful night over and over in his mind.
Trying to recall, how long did this go on for?
Oh, years. There was never a trace of Madame Jacqueline. Monsieur Noel, true to the vow he'd sworn the day after she left, spent his life in the search for her. All the capitals of Europe and the larger cities he searched, aided by the police, but it was all in vain. Madame Jacqueline had disappeared. The gentlemen wrote to each other constantly, advising, suggesting and planning. All the time Monsieur Florio could take from the courts he employed in travelling throughout Europe, while Monsieur Noel was on the other side of the world, mainly in the Americas. And 100 times a year I heard him say that he thought that in the glimpse of a profile or the sound of a woman's voice behind him, he had reached the end of his quest. But each disappointment was more bitter than the last.
But thanks to you and your devotion to the boy, Raymond has grown into a splendid young man. He is undoubtedly the one joy of Monsieur Florio's life.
The monsieur tried to make up in his love what the son missed in not having a mother.
And the doctor and I are so pleased that he inherited a taste for the law, and for a year he travelled to America to study, and all on his own. It's good to see that he has fondness for adventure. Oh, to be young again.
That was indeed a good year. Every morning the monsieur would race down to the drawing room to see if there had been any correspondence from the young man. It was truly wonderful to see him returning to something of his old self.
I remember how proud we all were when Raymond was admitted to practice in the courts of France. Monsieur Florio's hard work had served him well when he was appointed president of the Toulouse court, just before Raymond became a fully fledged advocate.
Those were such happy months. You remember how Raymond remained in Bordeaux with me, as he could not practice law in his father's court, and the monsieur moved to Toulouse. Despite everything, the boy was surrounded by many who loved him dearly.
In many ways very blessed, but still, all the love in the world cannot even begin to make up for a mother's own love. I meant no offence.
Oh, none taken, madame. Raising that young man has brought me such joy. And to see him and his love, Mademoiselle Helene, so besotted with each other. I sense we'll be hearing wedding bells very soon.
I was going to ask you about that very subject. There has been much talk of their liaison. Many are eager to hear the moment he proposes.
To be honest, I think he's building up the courage to talk to his father, and then Monsieur Valmorin himself.
With that young man's charm, he will find no opposition, of that I can assure you. Now, I must hasten to meet my brother. It's opera tonight, and I always make a point of meeting the doctor early, as his timekeeping gets ever worse as the years progress.
I look forward to hearing all about it. I'll begin preparing supper. Master Raymond has quite an appetite these days.
My dear Merivale, I believe I have some good news.
Really?
True, my dear friend, true. Listen, it is addressed Café Libertad, Buenos Aires. I shall paraphrase, as it is somewhat long. My reverend preceptor, you will no doubt be surprised to hear from me, especially from this godforsaken place. Have been here for some weeks. Don't see how I am going to live much longer. South America is a great place for government officials and cattle raisers. Cattle thieves, I'm told, do rather well, but none of these lines of occupation are open to me. The people of Latin America have the suspicious nature of all provincials, and most of them chat about their family scandals in the cafes. It is not a fruitful field for a discreet young man with a keen scent. The very wealthy are usually investing in revolutions, and I have no vocation for that form of promoting. All this, my dear teacher, is simply a prelude to the information that I want to get back to France, very badly. If you can find something for me to do, and want me badly enough to pay my passage, I will take the first ship that sails. Signed, Frederic Laroque. Well, well, how very interesting.
And this Frederic Laroque?
He is a young man who was a clerk here in my office before we became partners here at Confidential Missions. He displayed a singular aptitude for our work, but youth... Youth. He even once used the word we don't use to describe our profession.
Not blackmail.
Shh. Such an ugly word. Information seekers. Alas, he would not stay with me as I advised. He insisted on going his own way, and I lost sight of him in a short time. I am really surprised that he is not in prison, but it shows that he must have developed as I knew he would. His hardships in the New World probably have had the needed subduing effect, and now he is an instrument made to our hand.
And of his loyalty?
Oh, undoubted. Thoroughly loyal to his friend or employer he always was, I assure you, my dear Merivale, and without fear, absolutely. Oh, it is providential, providential.
Most providential. But you are certain, my dear Robert, that the young man is trustworthy. You remember that Guadin was also fearless.
Oh, quite so, my dear friend. He is the soul of honor. He would not think of attempting anything dishonest with me.
In that case, I think that we would do well to send him the money.
Just what I was going to propose the moment I finished this letter.
I look forward to meeting this young man. Passage from Argentina shouldn't take longer than 5 or so weeks. I suggest we send him 1,000 francs, which will show him of our sincere interest.
Indeed.
Well, my dear, is this the only room you have to spare?
Yes, monsieur. We appear to be very busy at present.
It will do for now. Do you have some strong and willing young man to bring our trunk to the room?
Oh, yes, monsieur. I will see that Victor brings it presently.
Not exactly a palace, is it?
Well, I don't suppose we shall be here long.
Do you have to keep the gun in the room? You know how I hate those things.
I feel safer having it to hand. You never know when you need added protection. Has anyone inquired for Monsieur Laroque, Frederic Laroque?
This gentleman left his card about an hour ago, monsieur.
Parasard. I dare say he will return. When he does, show him up, please.
Yes, monsieur. Can I get you anything?
A bottle of absinthe and some cigarettes.
Yes, monsieur.
I wonder what the old devil is up to now.
This is better than the ship, anyhow, isn't it?
Oh, yes. I've had enough of the sea for a long time. You were certainly anxious to see France once again.
I've been away from it for 20 years.
I shouldn't wonder if you found a change or two.
I don't suppose I'll find any changes greater than those in myself.
Because you have your hair cut short. And people often have their hair cut short for all sorts of reasons. Typhoid fever is better than most. And I rather like your short hair.
I'm not thinking of my hair. I'm thinking of what I was, and what I am today.
If it hurts you to think of it, don't think of it.
I suppose you're right. Perhaps that is the better way.
Of course it is. What's done can't be undone. There are lots of women more to be pitied than you are.
I wonder.
To begin with, you are the only woman I have loved for the last 6 months. That ought to count for something.
20 years ago. I was young and pretty then.
Oh, you look all right by gaslight now.
I had a husband and a child. Now I'm all alone, with nothing left.
And what about me? Don't I count for something?
Oh, shut up. I don't want to play the fool today.
So I see. Madame has her nerves.
Today I'm sick of everything. Life disgusts me. I'd sell mine for a centime.
Oh, it's worth more than that. Now buck up. I quite understand that you used to be rich, but everyone has their ups and downs. Well, look at me. I used to be old Parasard's clerk, and now look at me. Take the times as they come, and the money when you can get your hands on it. That's my motto. Money's the only thing that matters.
Oh, I know you'd do anything for money.
Better that than do nothing and get nothing for it.
Will that be all, monsieur?
Ah, good. Now mix up the drinks and put some power in them. What's going on in Bordeaux? Is there any fun?
Well, it's amusing sometimes, and then sometimes it isn't.
Well, now we know, don't we?
Will you dine at the table d'hôtel?
What's the cooking like?
Well, some people say it's good, and then some people say it isn't.
You are a mine of information, aren't you?
Dinner's at 7.
Right.
If you require anything further, ring twice for me.
Nay, nay, my lady. Never remove a bottle until it is empty.
As you wish, monsieur.
I do wish. Oh, great. It's a marvel. There's nothing you do better than an absinthe. Now light up and let's be happy.
Are we going to be here long?
I don't know. That depends on Parasard. I must have a chat with him before I can say.
Who is Parasard?
I told you, I used to be his clerk. He's a lawyer.
What sort of a man is he?
Oh, he's a clever old devil. He knows the Code Napoleon backwards. When I wrote to him, I thought to myself, well, there's a postage stamp wasted. For Parasard is either retired from business or he's making felt shoes in prison somewhere, unless he's flirting with the dusky native ladies of New Caledonia. But I was wrong. He's not in prison. Says he's glad to hear from me and sends me 1,000 francs to pay for my passage. The old fox certainly needs me for something. He doesn't spend that much money for nothing.
Be careful.
Don't worry. I'll keep my eyes open and... There he is now, I guess. Come in.
My dear Laroque.
Well, how are you, monsieur? By heaven, you've put on some flesh, haven't you?
I put most of that on with my clothes every morning.
Every morning? What on earth for?
Thin people do not inspire confidence. Fat people do. Madame?
My life's companion for the last 6 months.
Let me present Monsieur Merivale, formerly a schoolmaster, but now my friend and associate.
Delighted. Oh, but sit down, sit down. And first, let me thank you to begin with.
For the 1,000 francs I sent you.
Yes.
When I received your letter, it struck me that you were not exactly rolling in money.
I wasn't. Exactly.
So, I thought it was well to send you a little on account.
And supposing I'd put the money in my pocket and remained in South America?
I should have lost my 1,000 francs. But I wasn't afraid of that. I knew you too well, Laroque. I knew you to be too
honest?
Too intelligent. To do such a foolish thing. What are the 1,000 francs in the position I am going to offer you?
As good as that, eh?
Ask Monsieur Merivale.
A first-class position.
Sounds interesting.
Gentlemen, I will leave you to your business talk and unpack.
Yes, do.
Now then, to business. To begin with, I am no longer a lawyer.
So I see. According to your card, you are now a notary public.
That's to inspire confidence. Confidence is such a beautiful thing in these days of disrespect. Alas, today respect is rapidly disappearing. The young have ceased to respect the old, and the family solicitor no longer holds the proud position that was his.
By Jove. He talks well, doesn't he?
Like a book. But to resume, I'm in business now.
Oh, what sort of business?
Business of all kinds. I refuse no business.
With money in it.
But we deal principally in the faults, vices, and weakness of our fellow men.
Sounds like a good trade.
And a most moral one, for we do good with the strong hand, you see.
I don't altogether get you.
You shall. There are very few houses without a skeleton in the closet.
Skeletons are cheap today.
And in the best families, there are often secrets which are worth a fortune.
Oh, I see. Blackmail.
My dear young friend, what an ugly word.
We are humble helpers in the cause of justice. Most ugly word.
Find it rather dangerous, don't you?
We do not.
Pays, does it?
You must speak in quieter tones, my young Laroque. One never knows who is listening. Pay. I should think it does. You will very soon find out for yourself how well it pays, for I propose paying you in addition to your salary 10% upon the profits. You won't find it hard work, and you won't find it difficult.
Quickness, discretion, and tact are all that are required. My friend and associate thinks highly of you, and I trust his judgment. You are clearly intelligent and energetic, and I'm sure you are honest, not too scrupulously so at all times, but, you understand.
Scruples are out of date. Are you fond of money? If you are, you shall have the money.
It's a tempting offer, but you know, it has not been many years since I was in trouble, and I don't want any more if I can help it.
What possible trouble can there be?
Well, you know, even a lamb will bleat if you handle him roughly.
Our little lambkins don't. They have a horror of all kinds of fuss, and do not draw attention to themselves if they can help it.
The fear of a fuss is the beginning of wisdom. So there is nothing to be afraid of. Our head office is in Paris, but I have come to Bordeaux to open a branch office of which Monsieur Merivale will be temporary manager. In a little while, when you understand our methods thoroughly, he will go to Marseille and leave you in charge. Then we will double your salary and increase your share of the profits to 15%.
It's a bargain.
Then let us get straight down to business. You must understand, my dear Laroque, that our business is largely with those men who, in public or private life, are a menace to the well-being of society. Imagine the shock, the grief to my colleague and myself when we learned that a very high official of this fair city of France had falsified his accounts to the extent of 1 million francs at least. His name I will disclose to you in due time. You are wondering how so large a peculation can possibly be concealed, and therefore be of value to us.
I will not conceal from you that the man is a power in this part of the country and has many rich and influential friends. He recently threw himself on the mercy of these and appealed to them for help. As they were under obligations of doubtful character, they could not fail to respond.
Fortunately for the cause of civic and national purity, some of them were so indiscreet as to put part of the negotiations into the form of correspondence. A letter or two, quite providentially,
most providentially,
fell into our hands. We made investigations in a quiet way, as was our duty, and have secured what is almost legal proof of the astounding corruption. Now then, since they are so willing to come forward with the full amount of his shortage, they will undoubtedly be only too glad to add 50 or 75,000 francs to the amount to ensure the utmost secrecy. You understand now.
I understand. But if these friends of his can save him any time they choose, what's to prevent them from coming up with the money the moment we approach him?
My dear young sir, you don't quite understand as yet. If we go to the public prosecutor and lay our information in his hands, he will have no way of knowing whether the money has been refunded without an official investigation, which will certainly ruin the gentleman. For even if he escapes prison, the fact that he is guilty of misconduct in office must be brought to light.
I see. It certainly begins to look promising.
Most promising.
I need not impress upon you the necessity for the utmost tact and caution in dealing with this gentleman. You can see that in his position he has powerful official influence, and we must be careful that he does not trip us. He is shrewd, bold, and unscrupulous.
Most unscrupulous.
By the way, you aren't married, are you?
Lord, no.
That's all right.
Women are charming creatures, but in business.
I was afraid when I saw the lady, and I meant to mention it sooner.
Most charming woman. Aristocratic, good-looking.
I met her at Buenos Aires. She was destitute, picking up a living around a cafe. There's no harm in her, but she's taking a lot of trash, morphine, ether, opium, to help her forget, she says. She's a married woman, you know. Wife of a man in a good position and quite a shining light at the bar.
Really?
Yes. Deputy attorney in Paris, I believe. She was false to him and he turned her out.
Oh dear, oh dear. Even the morals of our magistrates and leading lawyers are not above suspicion these degenerate days. Was this long ago?
20 years ago. She says she went to England shortly after he turned her out and took up with a painter, I believe. Since then, she's been to America, Colombia, Brazil, all over the place. Sometimes rich and sometimes poor. When I met her, she was dying to get back to France and didn't have a son team, so I brought her with me.
Did she tell you the story herself?
Yes. One day when she'd had a little more ether than usual. She's a silent sort of a woman, but when she's been drinking ether, she gets talkative. She won't live long. About worn out.
I have been thinking that if her husband was a deputy attorney in Paris 20 years ago, he may be attorney general now. This might lead to business.
How?
Supposing the husband is now occupying a position worth having, he would be likely to make a sacrifice to prevent scandal about his wife from becoming public property.
Isn't he a wonderful man? Always getting ideas like that. A benefactor of humanity.
Do you know her husband's name?
No, she never told me that.
How old would you take her to be?
Past 40.
He must have been rather young for the position if he was near her age. You are sure she never mentioned his name?
I would have remembered it if she had.
Well, I don't know that it matters. A deputy attorney in Paris whose wife left him 20 years ago ought not to be too difficult to find.
Do you think so?
Mere child's play, my dear boy, and I think that overall, this had better be your first piece of business. Wait. Did she ever mention that her own people were wealthy at the time of her marriage?
No, I don't think she ever did. Why? It's the husband we'll have to see anyway. What have her people to do with this?
She must have married young and left her husband shortly afterward. The inference is that he was probably a young lawyer and without a great deal of money. He could not have married her unless she brought the money with her.
Well?
Well then, if he drove her out of the house, she has a good claim to that money. Unless he gave it to her then or later, do you know?
I don't know whether she had a great deal of money, but if she did, I'm certain that she didn't take it away with her.
Excellent.
Most excellent.
Now then, we will stay the hand of punishment temporarily in the matter of this official scoundrel and teach this magistrate or attorney general or whatever he is that he cannot turn his wife out of his house and keep her money.
But I think there is a child, though I'm not certain.
Makes not a difference. The money goes to the child upon the death of its mother, not before. Now, we shall take our leave. I suggest you spend some time with your life companion and find out all you can. We will wait for you at the Café Rouge, and you can enlighten us further, and we can give you final instructions.
I will see what I can do.
Make sure that you do, and try to get a power of attorney from her. Makes things so much easier.
Thank God they're gone. People bore me to death. What a life.
I hope our conversation didn't disturb you too much.
Not entirely. Just mumbled words. Too many words. I would like some more absinthe. Would you call the girl to bring some?
Why don't I get us something a little more special? Champagne! Not the sort this hotel would have. I will venture out, but be back shortly.
Is there a cause to celebrate?
Indeed. Let's just say today is turning out to be a fortuitous one, and I'd like us both to enjoy it.
As you wish.
I'll be back shortly.
Yes, you can. I'd like some more cigarettes and absinthe sending up. Yes, that's right. As soon as you can. What have I come to? Cheap and tawdry hotel rooms, scraps from strangers, a wasted life. Where are my cards? 2 deaths, they say. Always 2 deaths. Come in.
I hope I'm not disturbing you, madame, but the police make us go through this business. We need for you to complete the form for our records.
Oh, yes. Well then. Oh, write it yourself. Monsieur and Madame Laroque, from Buenos Aires, on their way to Paris.
Thank you, madame.
Is that all?
Yes. Are you telling fortunes with the cards?
Yes.
Then you really believe in them?
They're the only thing I do believe in.
Oh, I don't believe in them at all.
Is that so?
What do the cards tell you?
Always the same thing. Death. My own death. And it's coming soon. Very soon.
Really?
They never change. Before I die, I shall see the two people that I always see in my dreams, waking or sleeping. The man I love more than anything else in the world, and the man I hate more than anything else in the world. The cards have been promising me for the last 3 months that I shall see them soon, and that I die. That's why I wanted to get back to France.
You believe in them as much as that?
Yes.
Won't you tell my fortune?
What's the good if you don't believe?
Oh, I don't believe in it. But I do believe in it.
Sit down.
Is that ether you're drinking?
Yes.
What does it do to you?
It changes my ideas, and that's a good deal. But it gets on my nerves sometimes. But that doesn't matter. What do you want to know?
Oh, but if I tell you that, there'll be nothing in you telling my fortune, will there?
Don't tell me anything. You are married?
Oh, there's nothing in that. You saw my ring.
You have a child?
Yes, the darling, 7 months old.
You're in love?
Yes.
But not with your husband?
No, I should think not.
You are going to leave your husband? Is it true?
Yes, it's quite true. My husband is Victor. He works here at the hotel.
And is he a good fellow?
Yes. But he's a common sort of man.
And the other?
Oh, the other is a gentleman. A real gentleman. He's a commercial traveller. In soap. He dresses beautifully and he smells, oh, so lovely. I'm to meet him tonight. And tomorrow we shall be far away.
And your baby?
He's out to nurse. And I know his father will not let him want for anything.
Look here, my girl. You're going to make a fool of yourself. Take my tip and stay with your husband. Be false to him if you must, but stay with him.
No, I love no one else in the world but Anatole. And I'm going away with him tonight.
Well, you'll suffer in the long run.
No, I shan't. Anatole loves the very ground I walk on.
He may now, but it won't last. Your lover will leave and you'll take another, and then a third and a fourth, and you'll see what sort of a life that means. I know.
Do you?
I was about your age when I left my husband and my child. I hate my husband. But I am dying because my child is not with me. Child? Why? He must be a man of 24 now. I think of him night and day. All the time I think of him. And if he came into this room now, I wouldn't know him. But I shall see him again, I know it. But I shall not be able to kiss him and press him to my heart. He'll never know who I am. He might despise me or reproach me, and I couldn't stand that. He thinks I died years ago, and I'm glad of it. Oh, Raymond!
Oh, madame, don't cry, don't cry.
Better be warned by my case. Your lover will leave you as mine left me. Men soon get tired.
I am sure Anatole will never leave me.
You're a damned fool. Let me tell you, my girl, when I was your age, if anybody would put us side by side, there's no man in the world would have looked at you twice. Not a man in the world. Husbands are no good. Why, I could have had a dozen of them. Years ago, I lived in a big house. I was an only child, and my parents died when I was young. What would you know of how girls like myself were brought up? You're a peasant. When I was 16, I knew of 2 young men. One was Noel. He tried to kill himself a little while after I married the other, Louis, who was older and wrapped up in his work, always so serious. His work. That's all he ever thought about, his career. I used to cry myself to sleep at night.
I'm sorry to hear.
Please, save your pity. One day he brought a young man home. Someone he had helped. His name was Albert. He became a regular visitor to the house. Louis encouraged him to escort me to all the places I had so wanted him to take me. Albert saw something in me, for he began to make love to me, and he knew how to make love. I knew that I cared for him more than I should, and I wanted him to protect me. When I tried to talk to my husband, he told me to run along and play with Albert. And I did. I went, and I didn't think of him or my boy. I was mad, crazy. My husband came home early one night and found us. I hated him so much that I wanted to be untrue to him in his own house. He ran out of the room, allowing Albert and I to leave. We ran into the night, and I left the only life I've known. But I couldn't help missing my boy, my Raymond. I once returned and pleaded with my husband to let me see him. Despite my grovelling at his feet, he pushed me out of the house, and I had lost my boy forever. You can kill a man, and if you've any sort of reason, everybody may forgive. But if you're untrue to your husband, it doesn't make any difference how much reason you have. Everyone will kick you. Now, if you could leave me alone, I need to save what little dignity I have left.
As you wish, madame. Please call if you need anything.
You are very kind.
Do you know, that man Parisard is a wonderful chap.
Is he?
I should think he is. Brimful of ideas.
Has he got anything for you?
Rather. He's offered me a place in his office.
And what does he do in his office?
Oh, business.
What kind of business?
Oh, business of all kinds. Do you know, the moment he set eyes on you, he saw that you were a woman of a good family.
Did he really?
Yes. There's blood in her, he said.
Yes, his health.
I told him he could bet on it.
You didn't tell him who I was?
Not much. I told him, after making him promise to keep it a secret, that you were the daughter of a general, and that your father and mother were very rich, that your husband was a marquis, and you brought him 300,000 francs on your marriage.
That's good. Very good. And he believed it, did he?
Every word of it. What do you think of that? 300,000 francs. And I suppose you didn't bring him anything, did you?
I beg your pardon. I did not bring my husband 300,000 francs on my marriage, but I did bring him 125,000.
Oh, nonsense.
I assure you it's true.
You're stretching it some.
Absolutely not.
Truth and honour?
Truth and honour.
Then where's the money?
What do you mean?
Did your husband give the money back to you?
No, of course not.
Do you mean to tell me that when your husband turned you out, you didn't ask for the money?
The money's not mine.
Well, whose is it then?
My son's.
But you're alive still. Your son will get it when you die.
My son thinks I'm dead. His father told him I was. And when he was 21, he probably came into my fortune.
What a fool you are. I don't suppose he saw a franc of it.
What the hell's it to you? You've got nothing to do with it.
But you ought to clear it up. That's what Parisard thinks.
What business is it of Parisard's?
He only spoke in your interest.
Well, I shan't claim it.
Why not?
Because I don't want to.
Oh, but why?
I'd rather beg in the streets than ask that man for anything.
Yes, I understand that. That's natural pride. But should you give someone power of attorney to collect it for you...
Signed with my name and address, eh? No thanks.
Well, a letter then. I should think a letter would do just as well. Give me a letter and I'll go and get your money for you.
I'd rather die than let my son know I'm alive. He's not to know at any price.
But he'll never know.
If he ever thinks of me, I want him to respect my memory and love me.
Now, don't get all excited.
I don't want him to know what kind of woman his mother is. He shall never know it, I tell you. Never.
All right, don't lose your temper. Who on earth is going to tell him? I certainly won't, and it isn't likely his father will.
I don't want to talk about it anymore.
But the money is worth the trouble.
Damn the money.
Think of what a difference it would make.
I don't want to talk about the money, I tell you.
You keep a civil tongue in your head or I'll teach you.
You can't teach me any more than I know about you.
Will you write me a letter so I can get the money?
No!
I can do it without the letter.
What do you mean?
Oh, there's no trouble about finding a deputy attorney.
Are you going out?
I am indeed.
Where are you going?
To speak with your husband.
This evening?
Right away.
Then I'll come with you.
No, you won't.
You're not going to find my husband.
Mind your own business.
You are not going to ask him for that money.
I'll do just as I like.
You shall not go.
Well, who's going to stop me? Take care, my girl, or you'll regret it.
You shall not go, I tell you. You shan't go into that house and see my child.
Don't be a fool. Get out of the way or I'll make you.
Oh, in heaven's name, madame, what have you done? She's killed him! Quickly, someone run for the police!
There's no hurry. I shan't try to get away. I had to stop him committing a terrible act that would bring grief and shame on someone I love.
Madam, you must see that your present course cannot but be prejudicial to your case. The authorities will have no difficulty in ultimately establishing your identity, but you can readily save us much inconvenience by replying to these simple questions. So, if you please, your name and place of birth. Your age, madam. Is your name Laroque? Was this man your husband? What did you mean by saying that you killed this man to prevent him from bringing grief and shame on someone you love? Do not think, madam, that I would try and draw you into saying anything that can injure your cause. Do not consider me an enemy. I know that you shot this man Laroque in the Hotel of the Three Crowns, and I am more than willing to believe that you had some good reason for this terrible act. Your words to the policeman who arrested you are an indication of that. It is not my duty to try and convict you of a crime which was probably justified. The man that you killed was an ex-convict, and society is well rid of him. You have probably simply saved the state the expense of putting him in prison once more and keeping him there. I am more than willing to believe that your reasons for killing him were excusable, even in the eyes of the law. Look on me as a friend. You can talk to me without fear. I do not care to pry into the secrets of your past. You need not mention any names, but just tell me, as simply as you can, the reason you killed this prison rat. Remove the prisoner.
Florio, Raymond Florio, court-appointed advocate.
There's no need to be so formal, Raymond. How are things between you and Helen? You might find it amusing to hear that our dinner conversations are filled with nothing other than her informing me of how wonderful you are.
Mademoiselle Helen is everything to me, sir. I'm pleased she speaks so highly of me.
I too am pleased to hear that. But to our case. The prisoner, she would not speak. You see, Raymond, she is addicted to the use of drugs. She has now been without anything of the sort for some time. That means her nerves must be in a bad shape, and it also means she has an iron will to conceal the facts so determinedly and foil the examination.
She refuses to meet with me. Heaven knows how she can expect a strong defence if she does not speak.
I wouldn't normally suggest this, each of us working against the other in the courtroom.
Surely never against, just to seek out the truth and see justice served.
The purity and wonder of a young person's thoughts, not yet soiled by what life has in store for each of us.
Well, even though I am relatively new to this profession, I will do my utmost to best serve my client. Please do be assured of that, sir.
I have little doubt of that. You have indeed begun to prove yourself an advocate of note. And please do not judge my comments harshly. After years of serving the justice system, my mind becomes a little jaded from time to time. Now, with regard to your client, due to her silence, I am going to have to try the case as plain homicide. The testimony of the hotel maid and her words said to the policeman is ample for conviction. However, I'm going to permit you spend some additional time with her. Why not see if you can extract the information I have thus far been unable to ascertain? I can arrange for you to meet her a little later this afternoon. She will not be told that you are coming to see her, only that her presence is required. How does that sound?
I will, of course, meet with the lady and see if I can help shed any light on the situation. But surely, police investigations have brought some additional facts to light. Why will she not surrender her name? What harm or damage could that entail? Even a plea of crime passionnel will help her case.
The press are calling her Madame X. The mystery surrounding her grows daily. Some say she is the daughter of a noble house who has run away from a convent. Others that she's the wife of a marquis left him and married an adventurer. She was the queen of a band of kidnappers, the leader of a secret society of murder, and it goes on. But this aside, tell me, when am I to hear of more pleasant news concerning you and my daughter?
Sir, you catch me off guard. As I mentioned previously, we are so very fond of each other. I just need to present my first case and build my clients. Then I will have the funds to look after her in the manner I wish to. A beautiful, innocent, kind-hearted woman. And children, of course. Oh, apologies. She indeed takes my breath away.
I believe the whole world can see that. Now, I must take my leave and continue preparations for the case. As must you, I believe. I hope all goes well for you this afternoon and tomorrow. Your first case is attracting a great deal of attention. I hear a number of advocates are regretting not having been appointed.
Thank you, sir. But as I mentioned, it's difficult to defend someone when they remain silent.
You can only do what you can with what you have. Make the best use of your time with her this afternoon. Now, I bid you goodbye, and we'll see you next in court.
Thank you. There's no need to remain with me. There'll be no trouble. I'm not sure if you know who I am. I mean, I'm sure you've been informed that I am your advocate. But as you haven't acknowledged anything that's been said to or asked of you, I'm wondering if you have truly taken on board that I am here to help you. It is your right to have a fair and sound hearing, for me to know what your motives were for killing Frederic Laroque. Other than your statement, it would help enormously in attempting to make the jury see that there was... Why don't we try this another way? This is my first case. Although my stomach is tied up in knots, I will do everything within my power to make sure I do the just and right thing by you. Why, how remiss of me. I haven't introduced myself. Raymond Florio. The way the law works is that if I can convince the jury there were strong enough motives for your actions, a crime of passion, for example, then they will show leniency. Surely you have someone, a husband, brother, sister, son, that we can contact who can help us? You mentioned that there was someone you wanted to protect, your reason for shooting Laroque. There's no hurry. I shan't try to get away. I had to stop him committing the terrible act that would bring grief and shame on someone I love. Help me find that person. Surely they would not like to see you like this, torturing yourself to protect them. Don't you think they'd rather have you alive and well, rather than imprisoned? Surely you must see that I am trying to do my utmost to help you. Please, forgive me. I didn't mean any harm or offense by my words. But time is not on our side, and you've given me so very little in terms of a defense. Imagine this, that we can persuade the jury that there were such extenuating circumstances in your case that you are throwing yourself on the mercy of the court to see that you are a wronged woman, and that this man Laroque threatened you, and you had no choice but to take the course of action you did. Please, help me. Give me something to work with. What about this person you are protecting? Clearly, this is someone of immense importance to you. But what if they were here with you? And they said to you, what would they say? Yes. Oh, I know. What if they said they'd like nothing other than to take your hand and on a Sunday afternoon walk through the park with your arm in theirs, enjoying the sunshine, enjoying catching up with the moments that you haven't spent together, moments that are so precious, and that they are so proud and honored that you would walk out with them? I will not give up on you. I will return home and read and reread my brief and find a way to help you. If only the person you're protecting knew what you were going through. They must surely be the luckiest person alive.
You know, I was thinking about the supper you served. Now, when was it? Oh, yes, last Thursday. Lemon sole with red and yellow cherry tomatoes.
Halved, of course, cloves of garlic, fresh oregano, spring onions.
But there was something, well, bittersweet, if you will, that really made it one of the most delicious suppers you've ever prepared. Do you know, it's the only time I can get my brother to be ready on time, knowing that he has your cooking to look forward to.
Sea salt, vinegar and the zest of 2 half lemons. And not forgetting black olives, de-stoned and chopped, and a handful of fresh flat-leaf parsley, finely chopped. That's the bittersweet taste you mentioned.
But how do you do it? Every week a new dish. I can't cook a sausage even. Thank goodness we always had Rose to take care of us. Oh dear, if only my mother knew all those hours of finishing school cooking classes made not the blindest bit of difference. Why, that woman would turn in her grave.
Well, it's a good thing she's not going to find out. I've always found cooking to be so relaxing. And with Raymond having such a healthy appetite, there's always someone on hand to experiment on. Oh, but don't think for 1 minute that all the dishes turn out to be such resounding successes. Poor Raymond has been my taste tester for years.
And soon you'll have a young Mademoiselle Helene to take care of.
Oh, now that would be a joy, to have another lady in the house. As they only have limited funds, I would imagine they'll be staying here until they get their feet on the ground, so to speak. And then, well, it'll just be Monsieur Florio and I, when he returns home from time to time.
You could teach her how to cook.
Now, that is an idea. But we'll wait with anticipation for Raymond's proposal.
The young man is simply trying to do the right thing. It will happen, of course, I am sure. I wouldn't be surprised if he mentions it to his father sooner than you think.
Do you know something I don't?
It's just that he's been spending a lot of time talking with my brother. And although I'm not one to listen at keyholes, a sister knows when men talk is going on.
Oh, I hope you're right. But with regards to his work, it's hard for Raymond to get cases, isn't it?
I don't know anything about it, but I guess the law is like anything else. You have to make a beginning.
And Raymond is beginning tomorrow. Tomorrow he's pleading his first case.
And a capital case to begin with it is. Everyone is talking about it.
I hope he'll win. I haven't thought of anything else for such a while. However, with his client refusing to speak, he's going to have a difficult time.
Oh, I'm not anxious about that. Monsieur Raymond is clever. I tell you, he'll convince them.
I wonder if he'll be back soon. He's gone to the prison to try to speak with his client. I need to make sure he eats well this evening. I'm sure he'll be burning the midnight oil whilst he studies his brief.
He is lucky to have you in his life.
I feel as if he belongs to me a little. I am very happy that he's made such a good choice in Helene.
I'll let you into a secret. I know that he is going to talk to his father about Helene as soon as he arrives home.
Really? I don't think it will surprise him much.
You think Monsieur Florio suspects?
That Raymond is about to propose marriage to Helene? Oh, of course he does. He would have been blind not to see it. Everyone in the neighbourhood knows it. The baker asked me yesterday when the wedding was to be celebrated. The day before yesterday it was the butcher. A few days ago the grocer made some inquiries about it and...
There you are, Madame Varenne. Only yesterday I was asking your brother after your good health.
We've been catching up on all the news. How did things go with your client?
Not well. There is something far more to all of this, I'm sure. But her silence prevents me from being able to do my job thoroughly.
I'm sure we could all do with some tea. I'll return shortly.
Thank you, Florence.
You look worried.
Just concerned that I'm not going to be able to help this poor woman.
Is it your heart or your head speaking?
I truly do not know. But, as said, she holds a secret that feels somewhat close to me. Oh, I don't know what I'm saying. It's probably just tiredness on my part.
Are you sure?
Meaning?
Raymond, my boy, I have known you your whole life. You are sensitive, have great instinct. If there's something about this woman and her case that puzzles you so desperately that you need to get to the bottom of it, then you'll stop at nothing to do just that.
But how? I have so little time.
How am I to know? You're the lawyer. But let's talk of Helene. How is she, and what news do you have?
Oh, you are all so much for the gossip. I will tell you as soon as I know myself.
You tease an old woman. I need time to buy a hat. It has to be a special one, so make sure you give me time to choose just the right one.
Then just for you, I will hasten things this very day.
Even with the best will in the world, I know your attention will be on your case. And so it should be. To let you into a secret, I've already selected it.
What?
The hat, my boy. My goodness, your attention is elsewhere this afternoon.
I need to stay focused. Tomorrow is the great day. I'll have to find you a place where I can't see you, or the doctor, or even Florence for that matter. I'd forget what I was talking about if I caught sight of you all. And just think what it would mean if I stutter and stammer and break down in court.
And you're sure you've made up your mind to speak with your father today?
Yes, I am going to speak to him as soon as he comes in.
Speak to him about what? Good afternoon, my dear friend. And how is that brother of yours?
Doing well, monsieur. Head in his books, as always. But he'll be there to see Raymond's first case tomorrow. That you can be sure of.
It is wonderful to see so many good friends supporting my son, who, of course, I am immensely proud of. I'm only sorry that Noel cannot be with us. His business in Canada keeps him there for the present. Now, Raymond, you wanted to speak with me?
Yes, and quite seriously.
For how long?
Not very long. At least I don't think it'll take long to say it.
Try it in 4 words.
Oh, Louis Florio, stop teasing your son so.
I love Helene Van Moren.
Do you?
Wait, did you know?
What an old fool you must think I am.
And I want to marry her.
I can quite understand that. Well, God bless you both and make you happy. Is that all you wanted to say?
Yes, that's all.
You see, young man, that wasn't difficult, was it?
My boy, you're a good fellow. And you've been the one joy of my life. I think Helene is worthy of you. Love her, and love her always. Whatever happens, be her friend, her guide, her mainstay, as well as her husband. Above all, do your best to understand her. Women are not always easy to understand. But don't leave your wife out of your own life.
Typical of a man to say that. It's a good job your charm serves you well, Louis. Otherwise, we'll be having words about your insightful comments.
Share every one of your joys and every one of your sorrows with her. You will have hours of gloomy thoughts and bitterness, perhaps. Most men do. But never forget, in those unhappy hours, that a husband has a heavy responsibility. Always remember, Raymond, my boy, that you are responsible for the life and soul and happiness of the woman who gives herself to you.
I don't think the responsibility will be a very heavy one in my case, Father. Father, if I may be permitted to ask you a question.
But of course, I will help and advise as best I can.
It is not a subject we speak of often, but lately, spending some time with Helene and thinking of a family that I hope to have myself one day, what do you think my mother would have made of my life? What I've done so far, would she have approved?
My son, you were the apple of your mother's eye. Her love for you was so great. There were times that not even I fully appreciated what she would have done for you to make your life a happy one. Today, if she were here, hearing your news of Helene, seeing the look in your eye every time you mention her name, they almost shine brighter than the sun, by the way. And I hope that as the years go by, they continue to do so. Seeing the man you have become, your career, your decency, she would have been the proudest woman alive to simply walk along the street with you.
Do you really think so?
Without a doubt.
It's funny. Today, I mentioned walking down the street with the woman I am defending in court tomorrow. It's odd, isn't it, that we should think so alike?
Oh, I don't know. Like father, like son, and all that. Life can sometimes prove to be exceedingly cruel, my boy. Do everything within your power to protect and care for the ones you love and hold dear. Now, Valmoran will be here presently, and I will have a talk with him. I must tell him a secret before I ask him to give you his daughter's hand.
Coming here? A secret?
Yes, I'll tell you what it is afterwards.
Your secret won't prevent him from...
No, I'm sure it won't. I don't expect that Helene will be very rich.
I don't either.
You have your mother's fortune, and I will add as much as I can myself.
Oh, we'll get along all right. You seem to forget my briefs.
How impractical the young so often are. You haven't any.
I have one. That isn't bringing in anything in way of money, but it is giving me advertisement. And that will lead to more profitable cases.
Are you ready for tomorrow? I saw the presiding judge this morning, and he was full of praise for you. They are going to make a place for me.
But you'll make me so terribly nervous if I should catch your eye.
Not a bit of it. Have you really an interesting case?
Well, yes and no. A wretched woman who has killed her lover for no reason that anyone can find out. And she won't speak. For the last 3 months, she has not uttered a word in the prison that can be of any interest to anybody. I have, this very afternoon, come from prison where she is held. I tried desperately to get her to speak, but she remained silent. Silent under some belief that her silence is protecting someone who could come to great harm if indeed she said anything. And when the names of the judges, the public prosecutor, and her defending lawyer were sent in to her, she tore them up without looking at it.
Couldn't the examining magistrate get anything out of her?
Nothing. And using the name he had heard from one of the press, he dubbed her Madame X.
What sort of woman is she?
Oh, like all the women of her kind. She is, I understand, addicted to the use of drugs. And her supply being cut off, she naturally turns from stupidity to hysteria all the time. I'm afraid it's one of those cases that are worked out before they come to trial. I don't see how the court proceedings can last for much longer than 5 minutes. But I'll do my best.
Try pathos. Try to work on the sympathies of the judge and the jury.
That's what I'm going to do. I've been practicing tears in my voice the last 3 days. But I'm not going to have an easy time with it. It's rather hard to find excuses for a woman when you don't know why the crime was committed.
On the contrary, that gives you every chance. See here, your client won't speak, and so she can't contradict. This gives you a fine opportunity to invent a host of reasons. Make the jury respect her silence. Throw a veil of mystery over the whole crime and give your imagination play. Say that she is the victim of heredity. Say anything you can think of that will work on the jury's feelings. Then you have a good chance to win.
I had something of that in mind, but I'll work it up stronger than I intended. If you'll excuse me, Father, I think I have to go over my brief again and see if I can't work in some of the things you suggested.
Yes, that's it. Shake them up. And after all, she may be more sinned against than sinning. Or you can make them think so, anyway.
Sound advice from someone who knows only too well how our justice system works. I must take my leave. There's a hat I must buy. My good wishes to you both, and to see you in the morning.
I will escort you out, Madame Varenne.
Ah, Florence. And tea. You think of everything.
Raymond's first case. You must be extremely proud of him.
I am. Very proud.
I never look at him without thinking of his mother. Monsieur, it's awful to think in all these years you and Monsieur Noel have never been able to find a trace.
God knows we've hunted. I've done all I can. We've done all we can. Detectives, advertising, everything. I haven't told you that I went to Monte Carlo a few days ago to see a woman that seemed to answer the description. The usual result.
And last week I heard from Monsieur Noel, who thought he'd come to the end of the hunt. It appears that the first night he reached Paris, he dropped into a music hall and thought that he recognised her on the stage. He secured an introduction to the woman. Apparently she had Jacqueline's eyes to a line almost. But that was all. Oh, I hope you don't mind me recounting this to you.
Not at all, my dear. After all, you are family, and been through this terrible ordeal with Raymond and myself. If only I could forget her. I think sometimes that she must be dead, or we would have found her.
Perhaps. And perhaps that is the best thing that could have happened.
I have never dared yet tell Raymond the truth about his mother, but I must now.
Tell Raymond? But why?
He wants to marry, and, well, I must tell him the truth.
Will you tell him the whole truth?
Yes, I'm going to tell him everything. God knows what he'll think of me. Oh, I have no illusions. Youth doesn't make allowances. It is possible that he may love me a little after he has heard all of it, but he will never forgive me for having robbed him of his mother.
Why, of course he will. He knows what kind of a man you are, what a father you've been to him, and he will not need to be told how you've suffered and repented.
The boy is in love. If it were not for that, there might be some hope, but don't you see? He is madly in love with a pure, beautiful girl. He will try and imagine himself throwing Hélène out into the street in the rain after she has grovelled at his feet, and he will think I am a monster.
Have faith, and be strong. Now let me see who calls on us at this hour.
What is it, Florence?
2 gentlemen who were here before and wanted to see you, monsieur. I apologise for not mentioning it earlier. It must have slipped my mind.
Do not worry yourself so. Perizard. No, I don't know the name. However, Florence, show them in. What can I do for you, gentlemen?
Have I the honor of speaking to President Florio?
Yes, monsieur. Your name is?
Perizard. This is Monsieur Merivale, my associate.
And what business brings you to Bordeaux?
A matter of some delicacy, Monsieur President. A matter which interests you personally.
Well?
Every man has at one time or another in his life reason to regret the past, and these regrets, however secretly we may hide them, remain open wounds.
Alas.
Probably true. But kindly explain yourself.
Monsieur President, you were deputy attorney in Paris 20 years ago, were you not?
Yes.
And if I am correctly informed, you married a lady named Jacqueline Lefebvre at the town hall in the Rue Drought. She brought a great deal of money to the marriage.
Your information is perfectly correct, but why all these questions?
Because they are indispensable. In family matters of this kind, one cannot take too many precautions. In matters of honor, I have always
said... My time
said...
is limited.
I beg your pardon, monsieur, I beg your pardon. I will be brief. Your marriage was not altogether as happy as it might have been, and one day you had a violent scene. You turned out of your house the lady who had the honor of bearing your name.
How do you know this? Who told you?
Ah, then it is true, then. After this incident, Madame Florio travelled. She travelled very far away, and was more or less happy. More or less.
She is dead. You've come to tell me that she is dead.
Oh, no, I haven't.
She's alive?
Undoubtedly.
Most certainly.
And where is she? In Paris? In France? Where?
Do you really mean that you don't know where your wife is now?
Oh, no. No, but you've come to tell me, haven't you?
This is most extraordinary. I should have thought, with all your means of getting information...
I have never heard from her, or of her, since the day she disappeared.
Never.
Never! I thought she was dead. You know where she is and where I can see her?
Indeed I do.
Tell me, man, tell me.
I have not been instructed to tell you.
Good God, man, you don't mean to say you refuse?
My client has so instructed me.
You've come from her. She's your client. But what do you want? What can I do?
She wants the money she brought with her on her marriage.
125,000 francs.
She wants that sum refunded to her.
Well, she would have had it long ago if I'd known where to find her.
Then you raise no objections.
None whatsoever. The money is here.
I will tell her what you say, word for word.
Give me her address so I can go and see her at once.
I must beg you to excuse me. I have no authority from my client to give you her address.
But,
I am only acting on instructions.
But what reason can she have for refusing to see me?
I don't know that she has any reason. But before giving you her address, I must ask her permission.
Then you're going to see her?
I shall write to her. I may confide one thing in you, I think, without exceeding my professional duty.
Yes.
May I count on your discretion?
Absolutely, you have my word for it.
Madame Florio is in a tight place.
A very tight place.
She is penniless.
Great heavens.
Are you willing to send her some money?
Will you see that she gets it immediately?
Without a moment's delay.
Here are 300 francs, all I have on me. Send it to her at once.
She shall receive the money today. Allow me to give you a receipt. And when can I see you again, Monsieur President? Will the day after tomorrow suit you?
Can you have an answer by then?
I hope so.
We can go and see her together. I need not ask you to be discreet, need I? Nobody must know.
Monsieur President, I have not the honor of being known by you, but remember these words. Whatever may happen, we are engaged by our word of honor to remain silent, my partner, you and I.
Silent as the tomb.
Oh, Jacqueline. Jacqueline, forgive me.
In the consequence of which, the woman, Laroque, is accused of having, on April 3rd, 1934, at 5:30 in the afternoon, committed an act of voluntary homicide in room 24 of the Hotel of the Three Crowns in Bordeaux on the person of her lover, Frederic Laroque, a crime punishable by Articles 295 and 304 of the Penal Code. Woman Laroque, you have heard the charge against you. You are accused of having committed an act of voluntary homicide on the person of your lover, Frederic Laroque. What have you to say in your defense? Do you admit that you are guilty of this crime? You refuse to reply. You persist in keeping silent as you kept silent under examination. Let me beg of you, in your own interest, to speak. Your silence can only be harmful to your case. You refuse to speak. The matter is in the hands of the jury. You shall hear the evidence against you. Let the proceedings commence.
What did I tell you, my dear Merivale?
It has all been arranged.
Of course it has.
What is the matter, madame? Are you ill?
What? Who is that gentleman talking to the judges?
President Florio from Toulouse. Believe me, madam, your silence may lose your case for you. I beg you, speak. If this is crime passionnel, then now is the time to speak.
Let us hear evidence from the first witness. State your name, age, and profession.
Marie Chouquet, 20. I work as a maid at the Hotel of the Three Crowns.
Where do you live?
At the hotel.
You are no relation of the prisoner, are you? Or in any way connected with her service?
No, that is correct.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to speak without hatred or fear, to tell the whole truth? Say, I swear it.
I swear it.
Put down your hand and give your evidence.
On April 3rd, a man and a woman came to the hotel.
What time was it?
It was shortly after lunch.
Go on.
They had a trunk and a bag, I believe. I took them up to room 24 on the top floor. It was the only one we had left. I arranged for their trunk to be brought up also. I remember them saying that the hotel wasn't a palace, but that it didn't matter as they weren't going to be there long. They asked me to get some absinthe and cigarettes, which I got for them.
Did they drink much?
I didn't notice.
What was the attitude of the woman?
She didn't have any, just looked very tired.
Go on.
Well, they were visited by a couple of gentlemen who stayed a while and left. And then the monsieur left. He seemed very pleased with himself. Madame called down for another bottle of absinthe and I took it to her room. She was reading cards and kindly read mine for me. I took her advice about my husband and child. The monsieur returned with a bottle of champagne and asked me to get 2 glasses and bring them to the room. Well, that's what I did. And as I returned, I could hear shouting from the room, as did some of the other guests. I knocked to see if everything was all right, but they just kept shouting and then, well, that's when I heard the gunshot and went into the room.
And what did you see?
The madame was standing, holding a revolver, and the monsieur was lying on the floor. I then called for someone to get the police. The madame was very calm and said there was no hurry as she wasn't going anywhere. Then the police came and took her off.
And that's all you know?
Yes, monsieur.
The madame you refer to is the woman sitting in this room today?
She is sitting, just there.
Prisoner, you have heard the evidence of this witness. Have you anything to say? You insist on remaining silent.
Wait a little. Wait a little while.
Gentlemen of the jury, have you any questions to ask the witness? Then has the counsel for the defence anything to ask the witness?
The witness has mentioned that my client had been drinking absinthe. I should like to know whether she thinks she was intoxicated. Would the witness like me to repeat the question? Was she or was she not intoxicated?
I would say that she was very much excited. There was a look of madness in her eyes.
Would you say she was drunk?
Well, some would say she was, and some would say she wasn't.
And what would you say?
I wouldn't say.
Counsel for the defence, have you any further questions for this witness?
No more questions, monsieur.
The witness can stand down. I ask you for the last time, prisoner, in your own interest, to tell the jury why you have committed this crime. You told the policeman who arrested you, whose sworn statement I have in writing here, that you killed Laroque to prevent him from committing an infamous and abominable act which would have caused trouble to someone you loved. To what act did you allude? To whom would it have brought trouble? Knowledge of the reasons which caused you to commit the murder may have an important influence on the jury in reaching a verdict. You have made up your mind to say nothing.
There you are. It's practically over.
Gentlemen of the jury, I shall not keep you long. The crime on which you have to give your verdict is simple and baneful. The woman has killed her lover, but who is this woman? What is her real name? Where does she come from? Who is she? We do not know. Since her arrest, the prisoner has refused to answer all questions that have been put to her. She has not spoken a syllable in reply to the examining magistrate, and you have seen for yourselves that here in court she has insisted on remaining obstinately silent, although her silence cannot but harm her case if she had the slightest shred of evidence. There is sometimes an explanation of murder, if not an excuse for it. Crime passionnel, for example, to be found in the motives that inspired it. Often the passion which arms the criminal's hand, which disturbs her power of reasoning, and which makes her act without thinking, this, to some extent, diminishes her responsibility, and the horror which the act of murder makes every man feel. When one or other of these reasons is brought forward, justice may be tempered with mercy. But how can you be asked to find excuses for an act, the motive of which the prisoner refused to disclose? By this very refusal, we may be forgiven for believing, nay, we are forced to believe, that they are the worst possible motives. I distrust, for my part, the impenetrable mystery in which the prisoner has robed herself, and I feel no pity for a guilty woman whose lips have not uttered a word of repentance.
I will speak presently.
As I was saying, gentlemen of the jury, we know nothing about the woman Laroque. We have found no proof that she was ever a resident of France. In Buenos Aires, it is not known where she came from. During her stay in South America, she did not, as far as we can learn, offend any of the laws of the country. In the month of March, she took passage on board the Amazon for Bordeaux. Nothing particular was remarked about her during the trip, excepting that she told the fortunes of the passengers with a pack of cards. That she said she was certain she would die before long, and that she was in a great hurry to return to France. On the afternoon of April the 3rd, she arrived at the Hotel of the Three Crowns, and at 5:30 she killed her lover, a man whose past will not bear scrutiny, and who has been sentenced for theft on 2 occasions. You have heard the evidence of the hotel maid with reference to the overexcitement of the prisoner. I will draw no conclusion from this evidence, nor is it necessary to go into the question of the prisoner's moral responsibility, which overexcitement caused by drink may have affected. I will leave this phase of the case to my friend, the counsel for the defence, Raymond Florio.
My God! My God!
Are you ill? Shall I ask for an adjournment?
No. No. I'm all right.
This is the most disgraceful scene that ever stained a French court. If there is another sound from the benches during these proceedings, I will order the gendarmes to clear the hall.
As for the reason of the crime, I repeat that we do not know it. Now that the prisoner has promised to speak, we may learn what it was. You, gentlemen of the jury, will weigh in the balance of her sincerity and repentance with her guilt, and let your conscience be the judge of what punishment is proportionate to the crime she has committed.
Gentlemen of the jury, I will not try to conceal the very great emotion that I feel. I hope you must pardon me. My wish is to be cool and keep calm, but my eyes fill with tears in spite of all my efforts. My heart is beating quicker than it should. My voice is trembling, and it is all that I can do to keep from breaking down and crying like a child instead of pleading for my client here before you. I crave your indulgence for this weakness, but it does not make me blush. It is the first time in my life that I have come close to the bitterness of a woman's grief and misery, and my heart is torn by the fear that I shall not be able to prove myself equal to the noble task that I have undertaken. I can find none of the arguments that I prepared for the purpose of moving and convincing you, and my ready-made phrases have vanished from my brain, dispersed by one glance at the suffering and distress of this poor woman. Look at her, gentlemen. No words of mine can have the power of tears to move you to mercy. And there is a mystery, a veil of mystery which has not been torn by the evidence and still surrounds this woman for whom I am pleading. Who is this weeping and despairing woman? Where does she come from, and why did she kill the man with whom she lived? We do not know. She alone can rend this veil that surrounds her life, and she refuses to do so. She alone knows the secret and keeps it. Why? So as to mislead the cause of justice? Certainly not. For if that were her object, she would speak. She would try to justify herself. She would lie so as to appear innocent. As she could find a dozen plausible reasons for the murder of her lover. A quarrel, a violence on his part, a momentary madness. and nobody could give her the lie. Nobody saw or heard what happened immediately before the murder, and Laroque, the only person in the room besides the prisoner, is dead. But my client has disdained all subterfuge. She knew perfectly well what the consequence of her act would be, and she has not tried to escape it. I killed him to prevent him from doing an infamous and shameful thing which would have brought misfortune on someone I love. This, gentlemen, tells us the secret of this poor creature. She killed this man Laroque, of whose past, as my friend the public prosecutor rightly said, no good was known. Does this not explain the insistency of her silence? This woman, this poor wreck who has been beaten down to the lowest rungs of the ladder of physical and moral misery, this wretched creature loves. Good women will sweep their skirts from her touch in the streets, but love is in her heart, and the happiness of him or her whom she loves is dearer to her than her own life. Love was the motive that made her a criminal. Love and love only. And whom does she love to the sacrifice of herself? Is it a father who is respected and honored by all in his old age? Is it a husband or lover to whom she has been false and whom she left long ago? Is it a child who knows nothing of the mother's shame and lives unconscious and happy? We do not know. But some such love is the secret of my client and the reason of her silence. She cares nothing for what men say of her, nor any man's judgment of her. She does not care for her own life and sacrifices it with gladness. There is only one single being of importance to her, and she will not let her name be spoken lest the sentence stain her picture in the heart of the one she worships. The police have moved heaven and earth to find some trace of her past, but they have failed. Gentlemen, I ask you on your conscience, is this woman guilty? Does she deserve punishment for wiping out of existence the pestilent criminal who was threatening the happiness of the one person she loved? No, gentlemen, 1,000 times no. At the mere thought, my heart cries out in protest, and you will, I know, gentlemen, share my emotion and my conviction.
Excuse me, Monsieur Public Prosecutor.
Who is speaking?
I, Monsieur.
Have you anything else to say?
Yes, Monsieur.
Well, you may speak.
Those two, over there, came to the hotel and asked for Monsieur Laroque before the boat came in. They came back and saw him after he arrived. I took them up to his room. They were with Monsieur Laroque for quite some time before leaving, which is when Monsieur Laroque went to buy champagne.
I see. Have you anything else to say?
No, Monsieur.
I have discretionary powers to question them as witnesses, although they have not previously been summoned, and I will use it.
For pity's sake, be careful. For pity's sake, keep your mouth shut and leave it to me.
Don't worry, I won't say a word.
Let one of them step forward and the other be taken out of the courtroom. Your name and surname?
Parasard, Robert Henry.
Your profession?
Confidential missions.
Your address?
62 Rue Fribourg, Paris.
Tell me what you know about the murder of Laroque.
I know nothing about it at all, monsieur. I know absolutely nothing, and I cannot understand.
Did you know Laroque?
I knew him years ago in Paris. About 6 months ago, I received a letter asking for work. I offered him a place in my office, and I went to see him when he arrived. That's all.
Did you come from Paris to Bordeaux on purpose to see him?
No, monsieur. I had come to Bordeaux to start a branch of my Paris house here.
Is that the reason of your coming here today?
No, monsieur. I came to Bordeaux on a special matter of business, the business of one of my clients, a very delicate affair. It concerns the honor of a well-known family, and I hope to carry it through successfully. I am honorably known in my profession, and my clients know that they can always reckon, I repeat, always reckon on my entire discretion.
What did you say to Laroque in the course of your conversation with him?
Nothing much. Minor business matters.
You do not know anything about the shooting?
Not a thing.
Do you know the prisoner?
I saw her with Laroque, but I don't know who she is.
But I know you. You are the real cause of the murder.
Yes, you. You found out I was married, and that I had left my husband,
And you advised Laroque to find him and ask him for the money that I brought him on my marriage.
Monsieur, Laroque told me during our conversation that his wife had typhoid fever last year and that her brain suffered.
I nearly died last year, and my head was shaved. That is why those who used to know me cannot recognize me now. But I am not mad. I begged and prayed Laroque not to follow your hateful advice, and he refused to listen to me. As I would not run the risk of his seeing and speaking to my son, I killed him.
The other witness, bring him back in. Monsieur Perissard, do not leave the court, if you please. We may want you again.
But I have pressing business to attend to.
As do we here today. Kindly sit down.
I really don't understand. It's disgraceful. I was not regularly cited. Article 313 of the Code of Criminal Instruction.
Your name and surname?
Merivale Modiste Hyacinth.
And what do you know about the murder of Frederic Laroque?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing? Do you know Laroque?
No, monsieur.
Had you never seen him? Did you not visit him with your partner at the Hotel of the Three Crowns? The hotel staff saw you.
They must have made a mistake.
Oh, what an ass.
Monsieur President, the attitude of these two men is highly suspicious, and by virtue of Article 330 of the Code of Criminal Instruction, I ask you to order their immediate arrest for perjury.
Look here. It's not my fault, that fool.
A fool, you say?
Take them away to the examining magistrates. They'll be questioned later.
You have no right to do this.
Woman Laroque, have you anything to say in your defense?
My counsel has said all that could be said. I shall never forget his kind, civil, and generous words, both here today and when we met yesterday. And I thank him from the very bottom of my heart. He truly is a man of dignity and standing, whose morals and sense of human kindness should be an example to many here. His parents, should be so proud of him. And I know his sense of right and wrong will serve him well as an advocate of note. He was right. I was not naturally bad. A coward broke my life and made me what I have become. I had wronged him, I admit. But I was very sorry, and hated myself for my fault. I begged his pardon, begged for it on my knees. And he told me to go, threw me out into the streets. Me, his wife, the mother of his child. Thanks to him, I rolled in the gutter. Thanks to him, I have suffered 1,000 deaths, and I have killed. I hate him. And yet, I do not complain. No, I do not complain. I have a son whom I love more than I can say. A son who deserves to hold on to the memory of a mother, a kind memory, a memory I can go to my grave holding so dear to my chest rather than him see what I have become. But my boy, he does not know me. The sound of my voice, thank God, can awaken no echo in his heart. He will never see me again, know nothing of my shame, and his memory of me will be vague and sweet and beautiful. For when I became lost to him, he was a child. He is so far from me now. For my dear advocate, a man who has done nothing other than show me compassion and love. Yes, love of a kind which probably he himself cannot place. My wish for him is that he embraces and enjoys his life, to open his heart to his love, and for them to journey a life together without being afraid of showing their feelings, happiness, and passion with each other. For what else do we people truly have? As for my son, my beautiful son, I wish I could have truly held his hand and him know me at this moment. What I have is a life of regret, but all that is now extinguished. My boy,
I worship you. All my heart is yours. My one wish is that you should be happy.
Call a doctor.
Is she dead?
Stand back. Stand back. Is she still breathing?
She shouldn't be treated this way.
Mother?
Stand back, please.
Mother?
This has been an Evcol Entertainment presentation. Madame X. Adapted from the original play La Femme X by Alexandre Bisson. Written and directed by Simon James Collier. Music and sound design, Zachary Elliott Hatton. Assistant director, Helen Elliott. Co-producer, Adam Deschanel. Recorded at the Umbrella Room Studio, London. Engineer, Ben Robbins. Cast: Marcus Churchill, Sophie Dean, Sarah Flower, Mitch Howell, James McClelland, David McKechnie, J.B. Newman, Rolly Okaradudu, Mark Stewart, Richard Warwick.